Representative Eric Swalwell to provide the introduction of Congressman Swalwell. I am delighted to introduce a new member of our Government Affairs and Policy team, Manal Shafi, who covers a large portion of the Bay Area for community and government affairs. Manal, please let me turn it over to you to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Carl, and it is my honor to welcome Congressman Eric Swalwell. First elected in 2012, Congressman Swalwell represents California's 15th district, which covers several cities in Alameda and Contra Costa County, including Dublin, Hayward, Castro Valley, Livermore, Union City, and my hometown, San Ramon. Congressman Swalwell serves on the Intelligence, Judiciary, and Homeland Security committees. He is the co-chair of the Democratic Steering Committee, which makes committee assignments and sets the caucus's policy agenda. And in keeping to his promise to work across the aisle, he also co-founded the bipartisan United Solutions Caucus. Before becoming a member of Congress, he worked as a prosecutor at the Alameda County District Attorney's Office and was elected to Dublin City Council. He was raised in the East Bay, where he now serves, and is the father of 2 children. And without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Congressman Eric Swalwell.
Manal Shafi, thank you for that kind introduction of our special guest, Congressman Eric Swalwell. And this is democracy in action, because the congressman is literally casting votes on the floor of the House of Representatives and will be joining us as quickly as he can. And we are going to continue, though, to ensure that we respect everyone's time and to keep you on time. A reminder, 3 segments today. First, I have the pleasure of asking 2 incredibly bright, articulate leaders about 5 questions. Then we'll move into our lightning round questions and then questions from Bloom Energy colleagues. I'm going to go ahead and get started with those questions to our CEO, Chairman, and Founder, Dr. KR Sridhar, and we will let the Congressman join us in progress. First question, KR. We've experienced a summer of extreme weather events across the country, including wildfires, hurricanes, droughts, and extreme heat waves. In fact, according to the Washington Post, nearly 1 in 3 Americans live in a county hit by weather disaster in just the last 3 months alone. KR, what are some ways that Bloom Energy can help people facing these climate events? And then we will pass that along to the Congressman as soon as he joins us. But we're going to start with you, KR.
Carl, thank you. And to all of you attending, good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are. And welcome to this event that Carl does amazingly for us, bringing in policy leaders that can speak to us from various different perspectives. So we are very rounded in understanding the various points of view that exist out there on issues like this. When it comes to wildfires and weather disasters, I don't think there can be points of view other than our heartfelt sympathies for people who are the victims of these kinds of disasters, and then asking ourselves, is this a one-off event that's not going to happen again? Or are we going to see a lot more of this? The reality is, given what has happened with climate change, we are going to see a lot more of these events happening more frequently, longer duration, and with greater severity. So the only answer to this is adaptation. We have to adapt. It is upon us. Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature does. It is, like Darwin says, the survival is going to come from those species that adapt. Are we, as a society, going to adapt to this? And adaptation comes from building resilience. And at Bloom, we offer one of the core pillars of that resilience, which is power. If you just think about all the things that you have. And I'm going to pause for a minute and welcome Congressman Swalwell. Pleasure to have you here with us, sir.
Oh,
And,
my honor. Thank you
and-
for waiting. We have just been voting on the House floor. We're going to be continuing the funding for the government later on today. But excited to join you. And as soon as Carl mentioned this opportunity, really wanted to talk to you about some of the real investments we can make in infrastructure, clean, green infrastructure that would benefit the Bay Area green energy economy.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And we totally understand you are performing the most sacred of duties that we would want you to perform, which is go and cast your ballot on our behalf. So we completely understand. And Carl was just asking me the first question on weather-related disasters and what is it that we should do as a society. Those weather-related disasters are going to be with us with greater frequency, greater ferocity, and greater duration for a long time to come, unfortunately, given what has happened with climate, no matter how we change it going forward for the future, which we should. So we have a two-pronged responsibility as a society. One is figuring out how for our kids and our grandkids we live a better climate situation than what we have today. The second one is how we adapt between now and then to make sure that when these disasters hit us, we are able to withstand it without the kind of victim suffering that we see every day on our TVs when we turn them on. And that is building resiliency. And at Bloom, we are focused on offering a key pillar of that resiliency, because in today's world, whether it is water, sewer system, comfort in home when you have high heat, or electricity for all the digital needs, including learning, you cannot have any of those if you don't have resilient electricity. And very soon, you will not be able to transport from one place to another within your electric cars if you don't have the electricity to charge it. So if we don't have a resilient electric infrastructure, everything else doesn't matter. And so we are focused on that particular core area of providing resilient electricity to the people, obviously in a clean and affordable manner.
Dr. KR Sridhar, thank you. And Congressman Swalwell, it is so great to see you again. Your public service before Congress, when you were a deputy district attorney, as well as these past years as a member of Congress, is something that serves our Bay Area so well. The first question that KR was answering again was the fact that we've experienced a summer of extreme weather events across the country. Wildfires, hurricanes, droughts, extreme heat waves, and the fact that, as the Washington Post reported, nearly 1 in 3 Americans live in a county hit by a weather disaster event just in the last 3 months alone. At the federal level, what can we be doing together to tackle these challenges?
Again, thank you, Dr. KR Sridhar and Carl, for having me before Bloom. And, Carl, you have young children. My children are 4 and 2. And when I talk to, children just a little bit older, this is the most important issue to them, because they recognize that it is truly existential. And I have gone to high schools in my district where young children have told me that they are rethinking, their own careers and their own lives after school, and what they'd want to do. Is one young woman told me, she said, "I don't know if I ever want to have a family, because I'm afraid that if I had children, they would be here at the end of times because of climate." And it's just awful to think that our children are thinking that way because they feel the pressure of these events that keep happening. First, I'll say colloquially, I'm working as someone who has tried to help the Democratic Party better message. We're a party that, we message in fine print, and I think Republicans are quite effective because they message in headlines. And the headline of this issue, climate change or global warming, doesn't necessarily, I think, grab people to be moved to take the action that we needed. One person told me, who does messaging for Fortune 500 companies, he said, we need to just start calling it death by weather, because that's what, these floods that are every couple years now, where they were every 100 or 500 years before, were these stronger and stronger hurricanes, or tornadoes in areas that have never had tornadoes, or wildfires in California and the West. This is truly death by weather if we don't get this right. So at the federal government, I think having leadership, having us, in the Paris Climate Accords with peer countries standing up, and as President Biden has sought to do, to reduce our carbon emissions by 50% by 2030, by doing all we can to reduce methane emissions. And I know Bloom is a big part of that. And the more you can scale out, not just in the United States, but worldwide, you can counter and see the reductions in methane emissions. The more that we can invest in technologies that capture and sequester carbon emissions by deploying them to the fossil fuel emitting sites that still have to, operate until we have enough scalable technologies to be completely green. So those are the investments that go into the Build Back Better agenda, the bipartisan 68 Republican and Democratic senator passed legislation in the Senate. And as I sit here today, we're hoping to have a deal imminently where we can vote on that and see, $150+ million in clean energy electrification, dollars spent across the country, or grants in BRIC, building resilient infrastructure that would be deployed across the country.
Congressman Swalwell, thank you. And thank you again for joining us today. I love that message, and I've slightly altered it to message and headlines govern in fine print.
And Carl, it's 150 billion. I said million, 150 billion that is in the Clean Electricity Performance Program that offers grants to utilities that increase, their year-to-year production.
Thank you for that clarification as well. And our second question will start with Congressman Swalwell and then to KR Sridhar. The question is this: clean energy solutions play a vital role in protecting public health and our environment. As we all know, our mission here at Bloom Energy is to make clean, reliable energy available and affordable for everyone in the world. Congressman Swalwell, tell us more about clean energy solutions that you are promoting in Congress. And once the congressman has answered, I'd like to extend the opportunity to KR to elaborate on the importance of our mission at this company. Congressman Swalwell?
Yeah, doing all I can to make sure that we're making the investments, in fuel cells, in wind, solar, alternative, energies. And in my own congressional district, we have the National Ignition Facility at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which essentially, for any non-scientist out there, would mean that you would get more energy out after the fusion event than you put in. And that could be a real game changer, to have a clean energy fusion source. The lab director told me they had a breakthrough just a few weeks ago that, to use a football metaphor, has essentially put them first in goal, that they're just, inches from the goal line of achieving fusion, which would completely change the way that we can produce energy in a clean way in the country. I have legislation that we're introducing soon that would provide a tax credit for any solar trackers. And a big part of the problem with solar and the tracking device that moves with the panel is that it's made overseas. And as we've seen with COVID, these supply chain challenges, when we depend on foreign countries, can really affect us. If we had a production tax credit, we would be able to make them here in America and better deploy them in America. So I don't think we can do enough to invest in clean energy. And I don't think there's a member of Congress in the country who has, an area that they represent that works, more in this area. So that's what makes it so exciting, is, to have talented constituents who really will rise to the occasion if you give them, the resources from the federal government to do so.
Congressman Swalwell, thank you. KR?
Congressman, that was a great answer, and I'm trying to make some headlines out of that based on what you just told me. And I think the most important thing with the policies, and I agree with all the policies that you're like prioritizing, and we would like to find out how we can work with you and support you on those things. I think the key message that people need to hear, especially people in the Midwest, right, and the Rust Belt, is these are job creating opportunities for them. This is, yes, we are fighting an existential crisis, but the silver lining of that existential crisis is in finding those solutions, we are going to just open up an economic opportunity that is bigger than anything that they've seen before. And the question then becomes, as we enact these laws, are we prioritizing economic development within the country? Are we protecting the jobs within our country? Yes, we are a global player, we play with the globe, but our people and protecting our jobs come first. So as an example, if you look at a simple example of why sometimes good cannot become the enemy of better, while we don't allow our natural gas producers to send the natural gas to foreign countries and provide a cleaner carbon footprint compared to coal, China is funding and building those coal power plants for people. In the absence of a good solution, they're offering a worse solution. So the math is, across the globe, we are retiring about 500 coal power plants. China alone is building 1,000 coal power plants for, like emerging nations. Net is 500 plus. That math is not working for climate change. It's not working for jobs in our country, right? So how do we create the and approach of there is a transition, during that transition, here are the jobs we're creating for you, but the future is hydrogen, the future is batteries, and we are going to help you get there too. And we're going to show you a pathway. To me, that I think coming from you all, a messaging like that of why does it matter for me today? One is we're going to protect you from the weather disasters by giving you resiliency today. We are going to give you a bridge to take what you already have and make it the lowest impact on climate and be able to export it and create jobs here. 3 years, long-term hydrogen and battery storage and renewables are the pathway. We're going to help you get there by building these industries out of the profits we make and the economy we grow.
KR, thank you. And if you've just
Carl,
joined us.
That KR reminded me that, as we think of wildfires and then we think of what Bloom does, so many of the wildfires in the West are caused by transmission lines that have brush blown into them because of the unseasonable winds and the high temperatures. And these transmission lines are delivering power to communities of 150, 300 people. And that's nuts that, we have such a high risk for wildfires to deliver, over dozens of miles, these transmission lines, where there are technologies now where you could take down the lines and have, standalone
microgrids.
That has to be microgrids. That has to be the future of energy. And I hope that as we pass this legislation that we're looking at, how we can do that.
We would very much want your support on that, Congressman. Because not only can we offer a solution, it's the right thing to do. At the end of the day, the question is it the right thing to do?
KR, Congressman Swalwell, thank you. And if you've just joined us, we are recording live on Facebook for our Empowered Communities Employee Town Hall here at Bloom Energy with Congressman Eric Swalwell and our founder, CEO, and chairman, Dr. KR Sridhar. Our next question will go first to KR and then the Congressman. When it comes to addressing pressing issues such as climate change and the COVID pandemic, a major obstacle in enacting viable solutions is encountering people or groups who may not agree with the severity or even the existence of these challenges. And KR and Congressman Swalwell, how do you approach having productive conversations with people who may not necessarily agree with you? KR?
So to me, I think it's how we frame it and how we frame the conversation. And this is something in political campaigns, policymakers really know how to do this well. And not all constituents think about the problems the same way, but we can always find the common ground with any group of audience towards a mission. In a place like Houston, it may not be climate change, but it could be the constant flooding and the grid going out every time there is constant flooding. And how do we solve your problem? How do we solve your reliability problem? In a highly security conscious community, it could be about energy security. In a community that's depressed in the economy, the conversation need to be, we can create jobs and sticky jobs. So I don't think, and they all ultimately contribute to the big goal. So I think it is not a one headline story that's going to sell in the country. I think we need to tweak it for the audience that we need to have and find the commonality that we have with them. And I think there is more commonality, but when we approach with that one hammer that's always looking at everything as a nail, that becomes an issue.
KR, thank you. Congressman Swalwell?
It's incredibly challenging, Carl. And I think you look at this pandemic, and on one hand, I think history will judge that with 700,000 people dead and sadly probably climbing as we go into the fall and winter, that we failed the test per capita for deaths as far as responding to the pandemic with masking, distancing, getting vaccinated. But because of our ingenuity, we achieved multiple vaccines that were deployed and available. And so it shows that we're capable of finding technical solutions to save ourselves from disaster. And so on climate, I know that we can rise to the occasion technically. We've done it with the pandemic. We have the solutions that we're seeing across the globe, and especially made here in the United States. But the challenge really is, do we have the will and the mindset, to follow them and enact them? I think, dollars and cents has to mean something still to folks. And, for every $6, taxpayers save, $6 for every $1, the federal government spends on, strengthening or retrofitting infrastructure for climate and purchasing, flood-prone properties for removal. So we know that the dollars actually go farther for the taxpayer when we invest in climate solutions. I think the Democratic Party has not been so effective in communicating to, the brothers and sisters in the labor movement who work on the pipelines, and all they hear is that we want to shut down pipelines, and it's not necessarily connecting with them that they would still be able to work with their hands outside, which is what they like and what they signed up for, but in a different economy. And I think we need to make that clearer to them. They don't want to be unemployed. They don't want some sort of subsidy that would prevent them from working. They don't want universal basic income. They want the dignity of work and the purpose in providing. And I think we need to be better in how we communicate and how we plan for that. I'll tell you a little anecdote. My mom knows I tell this story and she's okay with it. She works for Chevron. She's an administrative assistant. I'm really proud of how hard she works. But I had lunch with her recently, and I was asking her about all the outages in Texas. And she's a Republican. I'm raised in a Republican household. I have to go on Fox News just so my parents see me on TV. And I asked my mom, what's going on in Texas? They keep having these outages. And without any irony or trying to own a liberal, she just said to me, well, sweetie, it's the Green New Deal that, that legislation that AOC passed, it's not working in Texas because we don't have enough wind here. And I had to spend 10 minutes explaining to her that it's not the Green New Deal, that's not law anywhere, and explained to her as I understood it, what was happening. And she finally understood and came around, but it just worried me, KR, that we don't have 10 minutes, on every misinformation piece that's out there. that comes from social media or some of these news stations to correct mindsets. And so, truth has to have an audience, and we can't give up. But that's the challenge ahead. And I'm committed to doing all I can on it, because I know technically we can solve for this.
The common denominator that I heard from you both is listen to people. And once we've sincerely listened to people, then we can try to have an honest conversation and find common ground that meets everyone's needs. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and ask some more personal questions before we get to our lightning round. Both of you are highly accomplished leaders, public and private sector, in your respective fields, and work in positions that require you to wear multiple hats. What is a valuable skill that you learned through your current role that you didn't expect to learn? Congressman, let's start with you.
I would say to work smarter, not harder. And that came from, Carl, you'd appreciate having children. When Carl and I first met, I was single, no kids. I could put, 25 hours of work into every day, fly, on the red eye and, touch 3 or 4 cities a week, do the international trips for the Intelligence Committee. And then I got married and, have kids. And I realized it's a lot harder to do that. So I found that it forces you to just work smarter and learning how to just say no to, what's not urgent and what's not important for what you want to do, and clearing that off the calendar. This was an easy ask when Carl asked me to do it. But in the past, I would find myself on the weekends, at like a Boy Scout promotion ceremony, a Rotary Club food drive, and like all things that are important. But I realized like I wasn't saying no to anything, and my family was suffering because of it. So just kind of prioritizing like what is important for why I ran for office, what I'm trying to achieve, and focus on that. And that has allowed me to work harder, not harder, but hopefully smarter.
Excellent, excellent. KR Sridhar?
Before my answer, Congressman, as a parent of 2 grown kids, the kids grow up very fast. So you're doing the right thing by making sure you don't miss out. So make that everyday priority. Power to you. So that's something you should do, and you will be a better representative for us when you're a better father. So thank you for doing that. And mine goes very much towards the theme that we've already been talking about, Carl, which is when my previous life, I was in academia and I was in NASA, where it was all facts. It was all conveying knowledge, which there's no right or wrong about it, especially in the STEM field, right? There is, it's not a point of view. I mean, the laws of physics work one way. You're not entitled to your own truths, so to speak, within quotes. But here in this role, I approached it initially that way, and my learning has been, even though you want to, at the end of the day, convey the thing that you're passionate about, that is factual, data-driven, if you don't start with things in common with the person that is going to be in disagreement with you, you're never going to get to that place and find at least middle ground. And it is surprising once I came to that conclusion, the things we have in common, even with the people that we tend to disagree, are a lot greater than the things we don't have in common. And I always try to start as much as I can finding those things in common, forming a bond on those commonalities, and then trying to approach the difficult topic. I think there's a better shot at success. It's not that you would succeed, but there's a better shot at success. That's my learning.
KR, we're going to come back to you with our final question before our lightning round, and it's around continuous improvement. What is one skill, personal or professional, that you're hoping to learn or build upon in the balance of this year?
Something extremely difficult for me, but listen more.
I have never seen that to be a problem with you, but I'm glad that you're building to be even stronger in that area. Congressman Swalwell?
With a 35-week pregnant wife, just having, the fifth sense or the sixth sense of what does she need, because I'm getting a lot of complaints in the, complaint department that I'm not anticipating enough what my poor, dear pregnant wife needs. And then separately, I'd say I wrote a book during the beginning of the pandemic on the impeachment of the prior president and the role I played. I really enjoyed writing, and it made me want to write more, both fiction and nonfiction. And so that's a skill I hope to keep developing.
And congratulations to you and your wife on the upcoming birth of your third child. That's really exciting. We're going to move to our lightning round. I was going to put in a pregnant pause, but it seemed like too cheap of a joke to do. So we're going to go right to our lightning round. Again, 8 quick questions with 1 word to 1 sentence responses and no run-on sentences. We will rotate back and forth, starting with Congressman Swalwell. What is your go-to order at your favorite cafe?
It is a grande mocha, non-fat, no whip, no respect should be given.
Great, complicated order. KR Sridhar.
Espresso macchiato.
Okay, excellent. KR, starting with you. If you could attempt a profession other than your own, what would you like to attempt?
Be a chef. A gourmet chef.
Congressman Swalwell?
It is the opposite of what we do here, right? This takes a long time to achieve your mission. That one, you provide instant gratification to somebody. So it's the opposite.
Well, if you need someone to practice on, I'm coming over. Congressman Swalwell, how about you?
Oh, it's easy and it's timely. Blue Angels pilot, and they're coming to the Bay next weekend. They're coming back.
Oh, boy, I haven't seen him since I was a kid. Congressman Swalwell? Name one of your favorite books, other than the one you just wrote.
Yeah, it's Great Expectations. That hands down my favorite book.
Excellent. KR?
In the past, I've given non-business books, so this time I'm going to change and give you a business book, Good to Great by Jim Collins.
And KR, what is one thing that you are looking forward to during the remaining part of 2021?
I'm going to pick one that is more personal, which is I really missed with COVID a large, safe Thanksgiving get-together.
Great. And you'll start with the Silicon Valley turkey trot in the morning and then have that Thanksgiving together. Congressman Swalwell? We've got a November
11th due date, but also around that time, I think you'll see the world champion San Francisco Giants.
Great. Congressman Swalwell, what subject were you best at in school? And conversely, which subject did you find the most challenging?
Best at history, worst at algebra.
KR?
Best at physics, and the worst was foreign languages.
Okay. KR, what is something that cheers you up when you're having a bad day?
Going out in the open for a long run.
Excellent. You two may have that in common. Congressman Swalwell?
Runner, and yeah, same thing here. Yeah.
And Congressman Swalwell is not only a long distance runner, he's a fast runner as well. Congressman Swalwell, we're coming back to you. If you could live anywhere in the world other than the United States, where would you be?
I love the country of Brazil, if anyone has ever been. It's landing in Rio de Janeiro, it really reminds you, it's a little bit of like San Francisco and Hawaii, like had a child, and it's Rio de Janeiro. It's got like the elevation, the changes in elevation, and the beautiful city on a bay.
Wonderful, wonderful. KR, anywhere in the world other than the United States?
Well, I would have to say India because I grew up there and I came from there. But outside of that, it would be Italy.
Italy. Good choice. I'm saying good choice as I have a vowel on the end of my name, and I think you made the best choice. We have one more lightning round question, and then I'm going to remind my Bloom Energy colleagues to please place your questions for Congressman Eric Swalwell and Dr. KR Sridhar into our chat box. We'll get to as many questions as we can. Again, just go ahead and place those questions into our chat box. Our last lightning round question, we'll start with KR. What does success mean to you?
Right now, as a leader, right, what success means to me is when I'm enabling people that are working with me to believe that they can do more than what they can do and actually achieve it. And as a team, we accomplish more than what we accomplish. That's real success.
Excellent. KR, Congressman Swalwell?
Yeah, to me, it's that you set a goal, you achieve the goal, and the goal made things better for those that you were seeking to help.
And we are now going to segue to questions from colleagues here at Bloom Energy. We're going to start with a question from Tony. Tony asks, Congressman Swalwell, thank you for your service. As you represent our great state of California, who is your favorite NFL team? Chargers, Raiders, 49ers, or Rams? Any answer other than the Raiders will not be accepted.
I should just go back on mute then. Carl, I grew up the only 49ers fan in a Raiders household, the only Giants fan in an A's household, and the only Democrat in a Republican household. So I was just...
Don't we have a 3 strikes you're outlaw in California?
That's right. That's right.
Oh my goodness. KR, same question to you.
49ers.
49ers. Okay, well done, well done. Since we can see the stadium from the Bloom Energy corporate headquarters here in North San Jose. Congressman Swalwell, you recently had a famous actor, Sean Penn, as a guest at your reception. Can you tell us a little bit about Sean Penn?
You know, I asked him to do that because I've worked with, well, let me back up, Carl. Growing up in a Republican household, I would hear endlessly from my parents that Hollywood actors should just stay in their lane. We don't want to know your political opinion. And more times than not, they were talking about Sean Penn. And when I first met him, I told him this. I said, my parents think that you're just, you know, a Hollywood liberal who should just make movies and not, you know, talk about politics. And I learned getting to know him over the years that he is the type of person that when disaster strikes, he rolls up his sleeves, he goes into the disaster zone, gets his hands dirty, lives on site, and gets things done. That started with the Haiti earthquake about 10 plus years ago, but has continued as he has, even in the pandemic, sought to stand up testing sites and vaccination sites all over the country. And so I wanted to just honor him for his work in that regard. And I hope that I have a little bit of that streak in me in government of what we call GSD, you know, getting shit done.
Wow. Thank you. And we are being told by your team that you have more votes to cast and a committee markup to attend to. Can you tell us, before we lose you,
I will show you, Carl. So this is what,
Ms. Lofgren votes
this
aye.
is the
Ms. Jackson-Lee.
Zoom committee hearing.
Ms. Jackson-Lee votes aye.
And you hear they're calling the roll of
Mr.
each
Cullen.
member. So
Yes.
Well, why don't we
let
do
me
this?
vote on
to-
this and we can wrap up. It'll take 10 seconds.
Okay.
Sure.
Mr.
And this is the amazing part about democracy. We're seeing it live,
Ms. Fox.
and we'll let the congressman do that, and then we're going to have some closing remarks.
Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you. That's amazing. And I would mention to our Bloom Energy colleagues, just a few years ago, I was going to Washington, D.C. with a group of CEOs from here in the innovation economy. And the congressman reached out and said, how would you like a midnight tour of the Capitol? And we thought, that's wonderful. Who on your team will do that? And he said, oh no, I'll do it myself. And so from 10 p.m. till midnight, he personally guided us on a tour of the U.S. Capitol. seeing things that you would never see as just an individual citizen guided by a congressman who loves our country. And that was
Carl, that was a great tour. I look forward to when tours can come back. I wrote the legislation when I was a freshman to allow us to vote remotely on the floor and in the committee for certain situations. It went nowhere. It had like 6 co-sponsors. It was panned as this millennial who doesn't really want to work. He just wants to stay in his pajamas all day. And so when the pandemic hit, I kind of took it off the shelf and told the speaker that I had worked on this for a long time and this could be a model. And, you know, she's a true institutionalist, didn't want to make a dramatic change. But as we went farther and farther into the pandemic, to her credit, she embraced the committee voting remotely. So now you can still vote remotely on committee hearings. So I can do 2 things at once. I've been tracking this hearing all day and then just voted on it. And for the floor, you can vote with a proxy. So you can have someone else show up and vote for you. Now, this is going to expire soon, you know, as we hopefully come out of this. But I hope at least for the committee voting that we're able to be as agile as I was just there, because that's what we do in our professional lives.
Exactly. Congressman Swalwell, we are now going to hear from a couple of Bloom Energy colleagues with closing remarks and their takeaways from what they learned today. First is Carlos Garcia on our Washington, D.C. team. Prior to joining Bloom in New York City, working and leading the environmental justice community there. Carlos Garcia.
Thank you. And first, thank you again, Representative Swalwell, for all your work on the Hill and for providing such interesting perspectives. Trying to solve the root causes of climate change and while addressing their disproportionate effects on communities most marginalized is the reason why I entered the environmental field, and as I know is the same for many of my colleagues. So hearing that same passion and determination from our elected officials, such as yourself, only gives me more resolve in my decision to dedicate my life to trying to solve these issues and providing a better and more secure life for those after me, similar to you and your kids. And also, Great Expectations is also one of my favorite books. And a quote that always sticks with me is, I have been bent and broken, but I hope into better shape. And that always gives me perspective through tough times.
Yep. Yes.
And to KR and Carl, thank you both again for the engaging conversation. And I'm constantly impressed with your breadth of knowledge on such complex yet timely issues. And thank you for continuing to be leaders in the field. It literally means the world to us. And I will say, you know, something that really stuck out with me and something that the representative seems passionately about as well is tax incentives and really providing a way for companies and organizations and utilities a motivation to doing the right thing. And one of the tax incentives that we're most interested in, and one that we believe really is going to set the future of the electricity grid and the clean air that many communities are literally dying for, is the hydrogen tax credit, which is going to not only catalyze the green hydrogen movement, but also hopefully take out a lot of the power plants and the peaker plants that are literally polluting many of the Black and brown communities around America, and especially in California.
Carlos Garcia, thank you so much.
Yes.
So well said. Marissa Blackshire.
Hello. First off, thanks so much for the great conversation, Congressman Swalwell, KR, Carl. It's great to hear thoughts from men like you, and so just to really appreciate the time. What I wanted to do with my closing remarks is just sum up some of the things that I heard, because I think they warrant repeating or summation. You know, what I think I heard today is that at the same time we're facing unprecedented climate change related disasters and weather events, and we're keenly focused on localized air pollution and its disproportionate impacts on disadvantaged communities, we're in the midst of an energy transition. And a transition implies process, it implies a period of changing, and we are not going to go straight from fossil fuels to zero emission technologies. It's going to be a combination of near zero and zero technologies that power the transition. And it's going to be really, really critical that we understand that, and that we don't turn our nose up at near zero solutions that provide resiliency, they provide jobs, and they address health impacts today. Because if we do that, what's going to happen is that we slow the pace of the transition and we don't meet any of our goals with respect to these current crises. And in fact, it can have the unintended consequence of, favoring older, dirtier technologies like diesel backup power. So really excited to hear from you, Congressman, that you understand that and that it's going to be a combination that gets us there. And hopefully we'll be able to work with you on some of these really powerful solutions that we Bloom offer.
Marissa, thank you. Our final 15 seconds and then a word from the Congressman will be from a constituent from San Ramon, Manal Shafi. Manal?
Thank you. And thank you so much, Congressman Swalwell, for coming today. Actually, my first introduction to politics was phone banking on one of your campaigns. And now, almost a decade later, here I am working in government relations.
Are you a Doherty Valley High School graduate?
I am a Doherty Valley High School graduate. Yeah, I believe Dublin High School was our rival school. But thank you both. And I especially enjoyed your responses to the question about what you learned in your career that you weren't expecting to learn, and especially like KR's transition to becoming a CEO and having to learn a little bit about how that's different from just like science. I've definitely felt that coming out of school as well.
Thank you, Manal Shafi, Marissa Blackshire, Carlos Garcia. Congressman, any closing remarks before you go to Marka?
Well, I'm just inspired to hear from your workforce about why they choose to work at Bloom and why they choose to work there now when we need, these clean energy solutions the most. 9 years is essentially what the best scientists tell us we have to really make the most impactful change. And it's a challenge, but again, I know we can do it. And your workforce is working to do it every day. And I just want to be a partner who tries to, make sure that government is enabling what you're doing, not making it harder for you to do it. And I do that because my constituents care about it. I do that because, I care about this planet and our children having a clean planet to inherit. And I do it selfishly, for my own kids so that they know that when we were given this great challenge of a generation that we did meet it and turned over technology and a planet that was even more resilient. So thank you all again, Dr. KR. Thank you, sir, for having me before your great company. And Carl, thanks for just being a good pal, as always.
Congressman Eric Swalwell.
You can just call me KR, not doctor. And also, we don't do this often enough to our public servants. Thank you for your service. From all of us at Bloom, thank you for your service. Your principled stance, which is very difficult to do. We admire you for that. We respect you for that. Thank you.
Great.
Congressman Eric Swalwell, Dr. KR Sridhar, thank you both for your servant leadership for our region, our nation, and our world. This concludes our Empowered Communities Employee Town Hall. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.